The first thing we're going to do is talk about these quarterbacks for deep sleepers. And the first guy I'm going to talk about is Matthew Stafford. Now, Stafford missed the last 7 games last season. He had a spinal cord contusion. He actually started out pretty good. He had some up and down games towards the middle of the season, but at the very beginning he was on fire. Now, coming into this season, he's going to have his main guys Cooper Kupp and Van Jefferson on the outsides. He's got Cam Akers and Tyler Higbee as well, so he's got some players around him. He still has a pretty solid defense, even though the defense isn't really what it was maybe a couple years ago with the Jalen Ramseys and stuff, but it's still a really solid defense, and they're playing in a division that they can still compete in. The Rams is a good team, and Matthew Stafford could be somebody who's throwing up 300 yards each and every week, or each and every week, each and every game, to give you those numbers that people aren't going to really look at. You can grab Matthew Stafford towards the end of the draft, and he could end up being your starter going into the playoffs. I mean, he could be back to his 2021 form, you know, where he was just throwing down a lot of 300-yard games, and we saw it a couple times last year looking at it. So he just has his weapons all over the field. He still has people that he can throw to. They don't have the Odell Beckham anymore at all, but Van Jefferson is a very viable wide receiver for him. We have to remember what Van Jefferson can actually do. He could be a deep threat for you. And Cooper Kupp coming off an injury, I believe Cooper Kupp could still be somebody that's going to be zigging and zagging and be a top wide receiver in this league. And Matthew Stafford's probably going to give it one more good year to see if he can solidify himself a championship this year. So I think Matthew Stafford would be a very good lock for a deep sleeper quarterback for your fantasy team. Now we go over to the next guy. We're going to talk about Brock Purdy. Now, Brock Purdy kind of took the league by storm. He was Mr. Irrelevant. Nobody thought he was really going to do anything. It was Trey Lance's team. So Trey Lance ends up getting hurt. They move over to Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo ends up getting hurt. Well, now they got this guy, Mr. Irrelevant, last pick of the draft coming in, Brock Purdy, and he did nothing but show out. Brock Purdy should be able to take over this job once he becomes healthy. I don't know if he's going to be able to start the season as the starter. It's either going to be Sam Darnold or Trey Lance. He's healthy, but he earned his opportunity. He kind of earned his stripes last year, and I think that Brock Purdy will be a viable fantasy quarterback for you, especially if he's throwing those 2 touchdowns per game. That's what he averaged. So he's already back at practice. He's already starting to throw and he's starting to run. So that's really good for his outlook. I think he's going to be ready maybe by game 3, game 4, but early on in the season, he should be able to take over as a starter. And by the time it ramps up to midseason in your playoff push, Brock Purdy should be knocking down on all cylinders. Like I said, Trey Lance and Sam Darnold, as of right now, are splitting those first team reps. They're probably going to get the first crack at the starting job if Brock Purdy is not available. He had 2 touchdowns in 7 out of the 8 games starting last season, including the first 2 playoff games. So he not only did it during the regular season, but he also did it to the playoffs when it really mattered. This dude has some ice in his veins, and he was throwing like there's no tomorrow. I mean, he's got plenty of weapons. We're talking about Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle. He's got weapons all over the field, and he's got just an overall good team. I mean, he's got a team that possibly could win the division, and he's got a team that could land the #1 seed in the NFC going into the playoffs, securing himself a bye week. So it's one of those things, if you look at it and you draft Brock Purdy, he's pretty much going relatively undrafted, and he's somebody that can give you some very, very good type of games if your quarterback goes down late. I'm not saying draft Brock Purdy as your starting quarterback going in the season, but maybe grabbing him as your QB2 or your QB3 and just set him on the bench, because you never know what happens in fantasy football. If you start out with Lamar Jackson, you may want to grab somebody like Brock Purdy to give you a little bit of insurance, because we know the injury history of somebody like Lamar Jackson. So I would say just keep him on your bench. He's somebody that you can probably look forward to, somebody that can give you some valuable type of starts for your fantasy team in 2023, which makes him a deep sleeper. Now, the last quarterback we're going to go over here, and I'm going to say Taylor Heineke. I always get that name mixed up, but Taylor Heineke. He moved over from the Commanders, went over to the Falcons, and now Desmond Ridder is the starting quarterback right now. But if Ridder struggles, we could have Heineke step in. I think there's a high chance of Ridder struggling. I mean, he didn't look the best last season to me. Taylor Heineke's shown that he can be a good starting quarterback in the NFL, and given the opportunity with the weapons that he has, with the Drake Londons and the Kyle Pitts, and then they just drafted Bijan Robinson, he's got weapons to make some noise. It's way better weapons than what he had when he played with the Commanders. So given the opportunity, Taylor Heinicke can be a solid quarterback in the NFL. Very serviceable for quarterback in the 9 games that he started last year. So he's had relative starts relatively soon here in the NFL. Like he's not somebody that's been sitting on the bench forever. He's been playing, and every time he steps into the game, he's able to produce some numbers. Now they're not top tier fantasy quarterback numbers, but like I said, even if you drafted somebody like a Lamar Jackson, somebody took Brock Purdy, grab Taylor Heinicke. You never know what's going to happen in the NFL, and if he takes over and is the #1 quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons, there's plenty of opportunities for him to give you a lot of fantasy points because they're going to be in a negative game script for the most part. I mean, you can get him relatively completely free. Almost, I mean, he's being undrafted in most people's leagues. He's being completely undrafted, so you can get him almost completely free. And he's somebody that could put up some solid points for you if given the opportunity in 2023, and definitely list him as the last quarterback as a deep sleeper in 2023 for my list. As always, I do appreciate you guys watching the video. If you guys like video content like this to help you dominate your leagues, be sure to hit the subscribe button and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. Hit the like button, always helps out, and I can't wait to see you guys on the next video. We'll see you guys next time.